Yo guys, Sinking here. Today I've got a special guest with me,
Seema.
and today we're going to be talking about something special that you guys are going to check in the title. So, what do you do?
So, good question. I do a few different things. I'm a lecturer and a voiceover artist and an amateur boxer.
Okay, so a lecturer, what do you do in the uni? So, what do you lecture about?
I lecture on the advertising degree, so it's for undergrads. We do things like consumer insights, creative strategies. We do loads of stuff on entrepreneurship as well. So I teach third years and second years mainly, and it's good fun.
And you were saying you also do boxing. Now, how's that going along?
Oh, it's good. It's good. It's interesting. It's probably the most physically and mentally challenging thing that I've ever done. I really enjoy it most of the time. But I think, like with anything, you have your ups and downs. But I think it's something I'm really passionate about, and like I said, it's really really challenging.
So let's start off with probably the most cliche question. What do you find most challenging about boxing?
That's a good question. I think the mental part of getting used to getting hit is probably one of the biggest things that you have to overcome. Physically, like when it comes to things like cardio or weights in the gym, I can get my head around it. I'm a bit of a machine. Tell me like what to do and I'll do it, and that's fine. And you have that thing where you've got to push yourself in the gym, and that's all fine. But with the actual punching side of things, so pad work, bag work, it's all good. Obviously it's hard. It's you've got to get the technique correct, but you've got nothing hitting you back. But when it comes to sparring, it's a whole different thing, and I think it's something that not many people talk about that much, because when I look at like the journeys or the stories of some of the like boxing greats, one of the things that you don't tend to see much about is how they get through sparring. And I think when I first started sparring, it was great, and I was like, just landing shots, and it was really good and whatever. But then there comes a point where you get schooled, and that's a different thing. And the first time that I got schooled was by a boy that was like 13 years old. I'm in my late 20s. So, should I tell you the story?
Yeah, go for it.
So, I go to this thing on a Friday. I go sparring with men, and the men would do it from 8 till 9. No, sorry, 9 till 10. And the boys would have a session before them from 8 till 9. So one day I got there a little bit early, and my trainer was like, "Oh, Seema, get your head guard on, jump in." And I was like, what's he talking about? Like, these are like little boys, I can't spar with them. And so I didn't even put my head guard on. I just put my gum shield in and put my gloves on and start sparring with this boy. And sorry, before I started sparring with him, I looked at him and I looked at my trainer and I went, "Are you serious? Like, he's only young." And I looked at him and he was like this skinny little guy, and I just thought, no way, like he's gonna get bashed up. I can't do this. But yeah, basically that is not what happened.
You got beat.
I got so bashed up, I was totally in for a shock. Because the thing is, when you spar with men, they hold back. Because they're like, oh, she's a girl, like, so they won't go all out on you. They won't spar you with that kind of mentality. But when you spar a boy and your trainer's shouting in the background, "Oh, like, we're going to tell everyone that you got, hit by a girl at school, it's going to be on YouTube," those boys don't hold back. They want to kill you. So yeah, I think, what was your original question? I've totally gone off on a tangent.
What do you find
the most challenging thing, right? So it's getting used to like getting hit and not letting that throw you off.
Mm-hmm.
So keeping your composure when you get hit, knowing that it's part of the game and still moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
Especially because I'm not like someone that got into loads of fights when I was in school and all of that kind of thing. So yeah, that was a bit of a reality check for me.
So another big question that a lot of people might be wondering is, how did you get into boxing?
So I didn't really go into it with any intention to box. I was one of those people that was really difficult to get into the gym. I had like no motivation. I'd be like, yeah, I'm going to hit the gym in January, and I'd quit by February. So, and I didn't really know what I enjoyed doing at the gym. I didn't like running on the treadmill. I couldn't lift weights. So I would just go and like do a dance class, or I think I used to do a bit of capoeira, and that was fun. But yeah, I was basically not a gym body. And then, but anything that I could do was like bike or whatever. It was all lower body. And when I tried lifting weights, it went terribly wrong. So I thought, oh, maybe I'll like join a boxing class, because I remember thinking it'd like help me develop a bit of upper body strength. And once I'd done this boot camp in the park and they'd got some gloves and pads out, and I remember really enjoying it, but then I never did anything after that. And then when I was working in Covent Garden, I was on one of my missions to get fit again and join the gym, and I saw that they had a box fit class, so I tried it and literally went from there. So it started off as literally like box fit, boxercise, and now that I actually like properly box for a club and I tell people that I box, they're like, oh, you do boxercise? And I'm like, no, I don't do boxercise. But it is where it all started. So, and what happened is I think it was a really difficult workout, the first, like when I did it. But then as I started getting more and more into it, I realised that it wasn't something that you could just master. So like you can go into a Zumba class and you can learn the steps, and then like you go back each week and you can feel pretty confident that you know what you're doing. But with the boxing, it's like once you learn like your basic punches, then it's like, okay, now you need to move your feet. So you start moving your feet, and then they say, oh, now you need to move your head. And then you move your head and you forget to move your feet. So it's like there's constantly something to overcome. And 2.5 years, no, 2 years later, yeah, I still haven't mastered it. So, and I think I've got one of those personalities where I like trying to just like master something. But yeah, boxing's quite a tough sport.
So, what boxing gym do you train at?
So I box for a club called Repton. They are like the top club in England. I joined them about, when was it? Probably October last year. I was the first female, sorry, not the first. I was the only female in their seniors. But yeah, I remember when I walked into there, because anyone that actually knows Repton Boxing Club, it's like, you know, they have quite a reputation, like they're very old school. I remember the first time I walked into there, it's quite a, you know, big gym. They've got like a lot of fighters. The majority of their boxers are like champions of something or another. And for some people it could probably be quite an intimidating environment, although it's not really like that at all once you get in and you see what it's like. Everyone's really nice, the coaches are amazing. But I remember when I walked into there, I looked around, but I think because I was prepared and I knew what I was getting myself into, I went in with like a different mindset, and it was sort of like, yeah, what are you here for? And then, yep, just go and skip and warm up. And then I just started skipping. And then I think I took a completely different approach, because usually when I go in the gym, I like to just go in, put my head down, get on. It's not a social thing for me. But when I went to Repton, because I knew that, you know, they were quite old school and it was going to be a certain way and I needed to find a way to break through, I just like got in the face of one of the coaches and was like, hi, you know, what's your name? He just looked at me like, yeah, you're right. And and then we just started, I just said, oh, like, can I get a few pads or something later? And he was like, yeah, I've got to do the boys, but yeah, I'll do a bit on you with the pads later. And then I carried on doing my thing, went on the bag. And then while I was on the bag, he was just like, "Hey, you," like, and he pointed at me. He was like, "Do you want to do some pads?" So I said, "Yeah," and then I went over, and then I think he was quite impressed, luckily, and then he went and just started talking to the other coaches, and then it just all went on from there. So,
Okay, so
yeah.
not bad. You've got into like one of the best in the UK.
Yeah, I got like carded, and which means like, you know, when they kind of sign you up to represent them.
Yep.
And out fighting within like a month. So it was a pretty big achievement, I guess.
Well, congratulations for that.
Thank you.
Now I had another question on my mind, and I don't know where it's gone.
I know, it's because I've been talking
Yeah,
for so long.
yeah. I think that's it. Has boxing taken you anywhere else, or has it led you to other opportunities?
Yeah, it has actually, surprisingly. So about a couple of months into joining Repton, and this is probably because Repton is such a reputable club. But I'd finished training, I was about to leave, and then the head coach said to me, "Oh, there's a woman in the office, go and talk to her." And I was like, okay. And I had no idea what it was about, but I just went into the office and started speaking to her, and she was actually from Facebook. And she was interviewing the boxers. Basically, Facebook they were launching some campaign, which you can actually see now. It's like all over the place. But they wanted to like profile small businesses and communities and stuff like that for their Facebook business thing. And they wanted to shoot at Repton. So yeah, she was just like, oh, you know, like she wanted to find out, do they have any female boxers? I was the only one like in the seniors. So yeah, she just asked me a couple of questions. I literally did not think anything of it. But then I just got a text later that week saying, oh, we'd like you to come and like do the shoot for Facebook. So a week later I was doing this. I walked into the gym and they had like a whole film crew set up, and yeah, we were basically like shooting for this Facebook advert and campaign, which is all over TV and billboards and the tube and everything now. So that was quite cool. Just I'm quite camera shy, but the experience in itself was pretty amazing, because I was in like some of the main shots. So they were like, oh, Seema, come over here, and like putting makeup on me. Well, like not proper makeup because they wanted it to look natural, and then like putting fake like glycerin on me to like create this as in real glycerin, but to create a fake look of sweat, because it was actually freezing cold in the gym, but we had to pretend that we like were sweating because it was a workout. And yeah, the whole experience was quite surreal. Then they were like pouring water on my head, and I was like hitting the pads at the same time to create like this look that there's like sweat flying off me, which just sounds a bit disgusting. But yeah, that was a really good opportunity. And then I think just generally in life, like it changes your whole mindset, mentality. You know, I've changed so many things about my lifestyle since I started boxing, because I've done it for boxing, but it's helped me in my life. You know, it's the first time I actually care about my diet in a serious way, my lifestyle, like everything. And yeah, I've started doing qualifications. Soon I'm going to be qualifying as a personal trainer. So yeah, it's good.
So that's all the stuff that it has brought to you. So when you say you want to do stuff like personal training, what is like your goal, as in like your end goal? So you say personal training is something that you want to do. Is there like an end goal that you want to have?
So it's just something I want to do, like as something I enjoy, because I think I spend so much time in the gym already. It would just make sense to do it. I think it's not something I've thought about in that level of detail at this moment to say I've got a big end goal, but one thing that I would really, really like to do is work with people in the Asian and Black community, like particularly older people, like our parents' generation, kind of on health and fitness. Because when I think about like my own parents, or I think about other friends and their parents, like there's a lot of like resistance towards exercise. And when you think about like them getting a personal trainer or going to a gym, I can see like why it's a bit off-putting for them, because like, you know, when you think of a personal trainer, or you see like images or posters of like a personal trainer, they always look really perfect, and they have these like, you know, six-pack abs and like ripped bodies. And I think that our parents' generation look at that and go, no way. And but actually it's like more important than ever for them to like make sure that they look after their health and stay active and stay moving. But I just think that the gap between what they see and what they need to do just feels like probably way too off. I don't know if I'm right or wrong on that. And so I'd love to like do something that bridges like that gap between, and like helps them get into exercise but see it in a way that's like fun and enjoyable and relatable. Because even I would like, you know, and I'm, you know, in my 20s, like I said, but even I was like not someone that wanted to exercise or whatever. But the massive, massive benefits, without sounding cliche, that it's brought to my life are just unreal. So I'd really like to specialise in working with adults from like Black and Asian communities, because I think as well that, you know, there's a mindset that goes with our culture, and you know, you have to be mindful of things like, you know, knowing what kind of lifestyle they generally have, or what kind of diet they have, or do they still want to eat rotis and stuff like that. So I think that's the area I'd love to focus on.
So maybe there's some listeners who just want to like start off by just like working out a little bit, but they don't want to go gym. So do you have any advice for them, so like what they can do in terms of like working out inside their house?
Yeah, so actually recently on the BBC they had this programme, so this is not my advice, but I saw it and it was quite interesting. It was called The Truth About Getting Fitter, and they did some like really interesting experiments where they looked at what exercises you could do while you're at home. And if anyone can like watch it back, I'd really, really recommend it, because they identified that whole problem of like, how can you get the maximum amount of benefit in the minimum amount of time, or with the minimum level of effort. And there are certain exercises that are like 2 minute exercises, routines that you can do 3 times a week, and they are just as good as like 45 minutes of moderate exercise if you do it high intensity. I think that there were some really good suggestions on that programme. I also think that it's worth going to, because what it's really about is like getting the tools, and then it doesn't matter whether you're at home or in a gym or anywhere, you can do it anywhere. So maybe having like one session either in a gym class or with a personal trainer, and doing something where you learn a couple of routines that are useful for you, and then you can like go and do those routines anywhere. So like a lot of the stuff that I do in terms of training now, I've learnt it from a coach, but I can now go to any gym, or I can be at home or in another country outside somewhere, and those routines will always serve me. I can do them and I know what to do. So it's like learning it somewhere and then being able to do it at home. I don't think it's always that easy to just, you know, motivate yourself to do it at home when you haven't had someone show you the correct technique, or show you how to do something, or reassure you of like what the actual benefits are. Because if someone says to you just like mindlessly, oh, run at home or do this or do that, it's really tough, because how do you commit to it when you don't know what the benefit is or whether it's the right thing for you? So I'd really recommend that, you know, you try and get like one tailored session even, where you can learn a few good exercises and then do them at home.
Another question on fitness. Some people say that dieting is better than fasting. Other people say fasting is better than dieting. Which one do you recommend? And I have another question on top of that as well, which I'll get to after your answer.
Okay, so I'm not a nutrition or like diet expert, But I do a lot of reading myself, and I've also tried both. So I've done the dieting thing and I've done the fasting thing. And I think whatever works for people is individual. But the best advice, and I'm like a bit of a freak when it comes to stuff like this. Like if I want to like learn something, I will sit there for hours and read anything and everything that I can find. And I think on the internet, you'll find loads of stuff to one angle, and then the same things will be disputed. But the best advice that I ever got is if you want to do something, like let's say for example you say, right, I want to stop eating chocolate, or or you recognize that you eat too much sweet stuff, I would say like your goal might start off to be, I'm going to quit chocolate for a month. But the thing is, if you can't quit chocolate for the rest of your life, I don't think there's any point of doing it for a month or 6 months or like whatever the period of time is. I would change that into something until it gets to the point where it's something you can imagine yourself doing for the rest of your life. For example, okay, instead of quitting chocolate for a month, I'm gonna reduce my intake to once a week or twice a week on these particular days. So you're not saying you're quitting it, you're just saying I'm going to have it twice a week. Can I see myself doing that for the rest of my life? Yeah, actually I can. And so you turn it into something where it's something you can foresee yourself doing forever. And that's like with anything. Oh, I'm going to stop, I'm going to run every day for an hour. Well, if you can't see yourself doing that for the rest of your life, don't say that you're going to do it. Just say, okay, actually I'm going to run once a week for 20 minutes. Do you see what I mean? So it's turning your goals into something that you can see yourself sticking to, as opposed to like these 1 month fads and stuff like that. I think that they are sustainable and like you can keep them up. And I think for your health it's best as well, because I don't think it's good to shock your body into something and then not sustain it. But like I said, I'm not an expert, but for me, that's the thing I think that has worked best.
Okay, and I've forgotten the other question once again.
Another long answer, sorry.
But no, it's fine. I've got another question.
Go.
Now, you say way back earlier in the podcast, you were saying about training and what people could do. Do you have like maybe in the top of your head or on your phone a routine that you would do in the gym? Do you have anything like that?
Yeah, like it depends on what my session is. So I train about, how often do I train? Like 5 or 6 times a week? Well, sorry, 5 or 6 days a week, and then some of those days I train 2 or 3 times a day. And every session has like a different objective. So sometimes it might be cardio or fitness orientated, sometimes it might be like boxing technique, and sometimes there'll be weights. And even within weights, sometimes it's heavy lifting and sometimes it's higher reps and like more explosive. So I don't know, like one of the things that I do a lot, whether it's cardio or weights, are pyramids. So things like, for example, if I'm doing things like tuck jumps, burpees, squat jumps, squat thrusts, we'll do pyramids of like 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. Or 30, 20, 10, like whatever's, depending on the level. And you might have like, say, 10 different exercises. And sometimes that's a combination. So you might have tuck jumps followed by dumbbell bicep curls. And you'll do like, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10. And then you'll have another 2 exercises and you'll have 5 sets of those exercises. Or even in like weights as well, even when I do strength and conditioning, a lot of the time I'll do pyramids, so 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, or if it's, for example, squats or deadlift, or what the other ones, press ups again, like 30, 20, 10, or box jumps, 30, 20, 10. So I find stuff like that is always quite useful.
So, have you ever had a moment while you're working out where you've just felt like saying, that's it, I can't do this anymore, and you just end up essentially quitting, but just for the day or for a certain amount of time?
Oh, I'm quite stubborn, so I don't like. I can be quite extreme in my training. So, I mean, I think even when I've passed out before in training, I've passed out twice and I've just gotten up, taken 5 minutes, and then carried on.
That sounds like madness.
Yeah, I think I probably am a little bit. But then on the flip side, I don't want to make it sound like I'm this superwoman that just never gives up, because I think it's really natural that you do also have days where... So I have had days where I've just, you know, life has happened and other things have been going on, and I haven't gone to the gym. And I'd say, like, there's been loads of, like, more times than not that, you know, life happens, because it happens all the time, and you just have to get up and go and carry on. But there's definitely down points in your training, and it's totally natural that that happens. I think everyone that you speak to tries to front it and be like, yeah, we just carry on and do it. But the reality is that in anything, right, surely you've had days where you've, not that I'm endorsing it, but that you've been working and that you've called in sick and you haven't been sick, right? But it just, I think it's different for everyone and how they cope with it. Like, I think when I do train, like I say, I had that kind of mentality that even if I, like, pass out, I'll still get up and carry on. But you can't train like that forever, you know, and there are going to be periods where you, I don't know if it's burnout or what the technical term for it is, or that you just go through a dip in your motivation. I actually had my first dip in motivation earlier this year, like at the beginning of this year. So I was going to training, but I was just kind of going through the motions. So I was turning up, but I wasn't quite there, and I wasn't hitting it hard like I knew myself to. And for me, that was super frustrating, because I know that I'm that lunatic that doesn't do that. So when you're expecting yourself to be performing all the time and then you can't, you question yourself, have I lost my passion for boxing, or has this happened or that happened? And I remember I didn't even say anything to my trainer, because I have this, like, you know, brave exterior that I put on and I don't want him to see and whatever. But trainers tend to be very perceptive. They can often, like, read everything that's going on in the gym. And I think at the end of a session, my trainer just said something to me like, you can't be motivated all the time, you know. And I hadn't even said anything to him, but he just sort of picked it up. And I think I didn't expect him to come out with that, because he's always been, you know, he trains me like a monster. He's very, like, you know, hardcore. But I think that it just shows it's only natural, and you can have a dip. But then it's just about, sometimes it's good to take a break as well when you're having a dip, because you need to give yourself a chance to miss it and, like, get that hunger back and realise, you know, that actually this is what I want and this is what I love. So what was your original question?
Oh my god. Have you ever had, like, those moments where you just don't want to...
Where you just want to quit?
Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, I think everyone does. I think anyone that tells you they haven't is lying.
Okay, well, I think we're going to have to end the podcast here, as we are hitting that 30-minute marker nearly.
What?
I know,
already?
Time has flown so fast.
I was like, oh, can it be less than 10 minutes?
Yeah, exactly. That's what everyone has said to me since the beginning. Oh, how long is it going to be? Is it going to be over 10 minutes? Because I don't really feel like doing it. But it flows so quickly. So guys, if you haven't already done so, hit the like button. If you have enjoyed, leave a comment letting us know what you guys liked about this, and
please only say nice stuff.
No. If you've got complaints, just fire them in there. Let us know what you thought about this podcast, and I'll see you guys in the next podcast. But until then, enjoy the vlogs. Peace.